Okay, I'll just give a brief about other things. So what are the other types? We have classes. When we say classes, that means they are the types for which you can straight away create objects. Fine. In classes, we can have constructors, we have methods, we have variables. We can create objects of the type classes. There are various kinds of classes and with various rules. Some of those classes will be there for which you can't create objects straight away. Fine. You can create objects by having subclasses. Some of those classes will not be allowed to have further subclasses. Fine. All such restrictions and all, there are various kinds of classes. But yes, classes means, oh, for the class, normally you should be allowed to have a object. Okay. There can be classes for which no objects would be allowed. Okay, fine. But still there are useful things in classes other than just having objects also. Okay, so classes is one. We have interfaces whose definition changed from Java 8. Okay. Interfaces are nothing but they talk about only methods, no structure. They will be there as super types for some classes. You will have, these are nothing but super data types, super types. Fine. We have super type subtype relationships. So for a class, yes, this can be a super type. Not only for a class, you can say here, even for an array, those two interfaces are becoming super type. So from inheritance point of view, fine, it's like these methods are going to be inherited. Fine. Okay, we have some concept where a method, you have a type, interface is a type which has got methods. But these methods are only declarations. You may not have a full implementation of the method. It says, yes, like in header files, fine, normally you put just a function template, but there's no function implementation, right? So that kind of a thing. So interfaces have those kind of things, methods. It just says, oh, if something is of type this class, this interface, then it should be having these methods. It should be having these methods. Then we have classes which are saying, okay, my super type is I'm implementing that interface. Therefore, it has those methods. Yeah?
Compulsory.
We'll see what is compulsory. Fine, we'll be seeing details later. Okay. But of course, the method is, see, whether the method exists or not, suppose I'll give an example here to explain about the super type subtype. Okay. And more from the point of view of methods. You have classes and you can have interfaces. That's one thing. In Java, we have got single inheritance of classes. Okay, interfaces can participate in multiple inheritance. Okay, so what it would mean is, if I am defining a class, let's say this is a class, okay, a class can have exactly one superclass. It can't have multiple classes on top of it. It cannot be inheriting from multiple classes. Okay, a class can inherit from multiple interfaces. Okay, interfaces I am putting in dotted. Fine. A class inherits from multiple interfaces. This is okay. So when a class is being defined, I can say, okay, I'll keep that one class as my superclass, and these are the interfaces which are implemented by me. Fine. So whatever methods are here, they are going to be inherited here. Whatever methods are here, they are applicable here. Fine. Whatever methods are here, they are applicable here. Fine. What does this get? Oh, it gets all the methods from the super type. Method is an operation. You inherit those operations. Fine. If there is an operation available here, it is available here. If any operation is available here, 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 that's going to be available in the new thing which you are defining. So when you define a class, you can specify one superclass, but not more than one. And you can specify multiple interfaces. Fine, from where you are inheriting. Okay. Fine. See, if I have any type, it doesn't matter whether it's a class or an interface. Or okay, let me finish with the interface part. So this is for defining a class. So this is fine. This is what I am defining. But while defining, what I can use as super type is this. When I am defining an interface, if I am defining an interface, having a class is not allowed. Interfaces cannot inherit from a class. Okay, fine. So this is not allowed. Inheriting from a class not allowed. For an interface, yes, it can inherit from multiple interfaces. Okay, so this can be multiple, that's it. Okay, I'll show the keywords which are needed for these relations. So if I'm defining a class, fine, the relation with the other class, okay, with the superclass, I'll say, oh, I'm extending. So this is extends relation. Class extends only one superclass, but it implements, when it's inheriting from interface, this is nothing but the relation is implements. Fine. When we have an interface being defined, no relation with a class as a super type, the super types can be interfaces, and this relation here is extends. Okay, so syntax wise, if you want to have a look at the syntax for defining a class, okay, fine, I'm not talking about the body of the class, but yes, the inheritance relation which will be shown. Okay, so when I want to define class, okay, you will have modifiers, like I want it to be a public class or any other kind. So there are modifiers for my class. I'll say, oh, this is a public class. This is a final class. This is an abstract class. And there are different types of things. So those are modifiers for my class. And then the keyword class. When we had defined hello world, we didn't put any modifiers. We used the keyword class and give a class name. So give a class name. And modifiers I'll put in square bracket. This is optional. Fine, modify is optional. Give class the keyword. Class is a keyword. Use the class name. Okay, and then the optional part, you can specify a superclass. So you can say extends and give superclass name. Okay, that's one optional part. Fine, another optional part here is implements and then give a comma separated list of interfaces. List of interface names. Comma separated. Implements and say this comma, this comma, this. But those will be interfaces only. Fine. And then comes the body of the class. Then this is, we have the body of the class definition. Fine. So to define a class, yes, at the most one superclass, but you could be specifying multiple interfaces.
Why such a constraint is that?
One superclass?
Yes.
Okay. As far as interfaces are concerned, if you ignore that Java 8 change, okay, Java says will not have multiple inheritance. For, yeah, there are reasons. Why should we not have multiple inheritance? And there are good reasons. There's something not good about multiple inheritance. You know what it is? What's the problem with multiple inheritance? Yeah, ambiguity. There's a diamond problem, classical, there's a diamond problem. You have seen that diamond problem? So that's one reason. Fine. See, when it is having multiple inheritance of interfaces, the interfaces do not have an implementation. It just declares methods. These methods are there. So there is only one source from where implementation can be inherited by a class, not multiple sources. Fine. So there is no question of ambiguity. The diamond problem comes because of multiple inheritance. So fine. See, this what they have done is they have divided into kinds of inheritance, and we'll say, okay, we have multiple inheritance of types, because yes, one type, when I'm defining, I can specify multiple super types, but we do not have multiple inheritance of behavior, and no question of multiple inheritance of state. Interface does not have a state. Interface does not have a state. State means variables. When you declare, when you are defining a class, the variables which are put, they define the state for the object. Fine. So yes, you cannot have multiple inheritance of state. Fine. Prior to Java 8, we didn't have multiple inheritance of behavior also. It was only multiple inheritance of types. This type has so and so super types. Multiple super types are there. One super type could be the class from where behavior can be inherited, states can be inherited. State and behavior both are available in a class. Interface, only behavior. Earlier, behavior without implementation. It was declarative. Now that declaration has no, it's not only declarative, you can even write implementation. Fine, and that was for some reason. We'll try to understand later what was the reason why this change happened in Java 8. Okay, fine. When we'll understand what is interface, that time we'll see. Okay, fine. So we have, fine, this is the syntax for class, the syntax for interface. Again, similar things, we have modifiers. Okay, optional. Then the keyword interface. When this becomes simple, right? Your name of the interface. And then optional part is, you will say extends. The keyword here is extends and list of interfaces. Okay, and then you have the body of the interface. The body of the interface does not have variables. And we'll see, there are some special kind of things. You have some constants which you can be declaring. Okay, global constants, kind of. Okay, so those things are possible in an interface, but they are not about the object. Fine, they do tell a behavior about an object. They can declare the behavior related to an object. Fine, but they are not having any state. And later, when we look at the details, we'll see the examples for each of those things. Okay, fine. So that's an interface. And what's an enum? A enum is similar to a class. Fine, definition wise, similar to a class. So syntax wise, modifiers. Fine, it's an optional. Then the keyword enum. Okay, we have the enum name. Fine, name should be there for the enum. And then an optional. There is no extents allowed for an enum. There is no extents allowed for a enum. So enum, yes, because it's an enum, it always inherits from one specific superclass only. There's one special superclass in Java from where all the enum types are inheriting. So for that, yes, there is a class called enum. It's name of a class also. Capital E. That's name of a class. So whenever we are defining an enum, we don't specify anything like extends. Not allowed. It's an enum? No, you don't have the choice. It is going to be extending from the class called enum. And as far as implements is concerned, yes, you can put implements. So similar to a class where we say implements and we have a list of interfaces. And then there is the body of a enum. In the body of the enum, okay, first part is the list of objects. You list your objects which you want for this type. This data type has so and so objects. Then we have a semicolon and then rest of the thing is similar to the class. Rest of the thing after semicolon is similar to what goes in a class definition. Okay. Fine, you can have even constructor also. Fine, you have constructor, but those would be private. When you are declaring object here, they use this constructor. For an enum, yes. Fine. Constructors for enums are always private, yeah. So even if you don't declare any modifier, it will be considered to be private only. Like even similar thing for all members of an interface are always public. Members of any type of member, there are some members which kind of things which we can have in an interface. All of them are public. Okay, members of interface always public. Okay. Yeah. And so this is about the enum types. Yeah. Okay. Annotation definition wise not used much, but fine. We don't define very often. Okay. I can show you what exactly is meant by an annotation. And the concept about an annotation here. Look at the modifiers. What are modifiers? I'm defining a class and then I'm saying, oh, this is public class. It's some kind of a attribute. Find something about the class. Oh, this class has to be public. Oh, this class is abstract. Oh, this class is final. Fine. We consider these as modifiers for my class. But these modifiers have a meaning which is known to the Java language. Fine. The Java language interprets them. When it is public, okay, there is something, fine, okay, it's unrestricted. If it is private, there's a restriction which I am putting about its usage. Fine, there's a definite semantics associated with those modifiers, which is known to the language. Fine. Oh, I am writing this class, but this class has a difficulty level of 5. Oh, it's another attribute. Oh, this class is an easy class and this one is a difficult and this is a moderate. Is it not a modifier? But something which Java doesn't understand. It's not known to the Java language, but the programmer adds on his own. I want to have a modifier by which I can declare that this particular class is a easy class. @easy. You define that modifier. Programmer defines the modifiers and uses it. But they don't have a syntax, they don't have anything as far as the compiler, Java compiler is concerned. Java compiler only say we have used easy for that class as an annotation, as a modifier. Annotations are nothing but modifiers once defined. Okay, that's why I was trying to keep it different from a data type. It's a modifier basically. Okay, fine. But because it's there as a definition, someone can declare a variable of this type also. Okay, so from that point of view, yes, declaring variable and using like a type, but the use is, yes, it's a modifier, which is a programmer's defined modifier. Programmer creates a modifiers, and when he creates modifiers, it's his lookout how he uses it. He has to write his own tools. Fine, someone can write a tool to go through an entire package of classes and find out how many of these, what percentage of these are easy, what percentage of these are difficult. Fine. Okay. So it's just a modifier. Annotations are nothing but modifiers, and they are for they can be used once you have defined an annotation. It could be used, but then you can use them in your when you write your code. But then their further usage, the meaning, deriving the meaning out of it is something which your tools only will be doing. You will be writing some statistical tool to find out which of those are like this. But to make that information available that this particular class is an easy class, that's something which the Java can do it for you even at runtime. Okay, you want to find out, oh, that class, what kind of class is it? Fine. Even within your code, you can write a Java code to know that. Know about the annotation associated with a particular class. And so tools, there are frameworks over and above what we do in Java language. Fine, this is Java core Java language, but there are a lot of frameworks. Those frameworks make a lot of use of these annotations. So they will define annotations and they'll ask programmers, so you use them. We have tools which will be utilizing them. Fine, and this is the meaning. So they will specify when you define an annotation, you have to specify what is the meaning you're associating with it. Fine, and those annotations are allowed to have attributes. Like what I was saying, difficulty level. At the difficulty level, and value is 5. Difficulty level value is 10. You can have values. So value equals 10. For difficulty level annotation, I'm saying value is 10. What is that value is 10? It's an attribute for the difficulty level annotation. So annotations can have attributes. One attribute is value. Okay. How to define? And I'll show from the how to define. Suppose you are defining the difficulty level. Okay, fine. So I'll say how to define. You can have modifiers. I'm not giving the full syntax, but I'll say @interface. Okay, the interface is difficulty level. Okay, fine. Because you have said @interface, it's a annotation. You don't have to do anything. Fine. And then within this, Because the syntax is like a interface, it can only have methods which are abstract methods. Okay, so it will have methods which are not declaring, which do not have implementation. But now what's the type for my, I have a attribute called value whose type is going to be integer. Yes, and therefore I have a method whose return type is int, name of the method is value, and methods without parameters. That's what I declare. Though you write it as a method, it's not a method, it's an attribute. The return type of the method is considered as the type for the attribute. The name of the method is the attribute name. And all the methods here, no method can have a parameter. Methods without parameters always. And that's the syntax. And when you want to use this, the value attribute, there can be multiple attributes also. You can have multiple attributes. When someone uses this, okay, if you have defined something, this is an annotation, fine. So when this is to be associated with a class, I'll say, okay, I have a class. Okay, in the syntax of class, we said we can use modifiers. So this goes as modifiers. The convention is, fine, it's only a convention, it's not a must. The convention is, if you got annotations, they should be used first in a separate line and then have the regular modifiers later. Okay, it's just a convention, you can mix them. For example, I'm saying, oh, I have a public and abstract class. I can say public, put an annotation and then say abstract. It's fine. It's just a modifier. Fine, it goes in along with the modifiers. The convention is, I'll first put my annotation and then the other modifiers. Okay, so here, if I'm using, I'll say at the difficulty, and difficulty level, and in bracket, value equals something. The integer type, I'll have to have an integer value. Or because it's only for the special attribute name called value. If it is some other attribute name, no, then not. You have this becoming option. You don't have to attribute name. Fine, I can just straight away say 5. If the name of the attribute is value, we don't have to mention the attribute name.
If there are multiple
Yeah.
methods and
Multiple attributes. The type here are allowed to be primitives, string, and string array of string. They're just limited ones. You can't just have any data type as your return type. Okay. Okay, fine. So if there are multiple, yes, you'll say comma, and so value is 5, and then we have string, let's say attrib 1, so comma attrib 1 equals in double quotes, yeah, that way. And you have to mention in double quotes, this equals this. Okay, when you declare here as some default, we have some other, fine, I can say attrib default equals, and I might have something like this. So there's the keyword default also being used here. I'm not sure whether there's a equal to necessary or default and just the value. And the exact syntax will have to be checked, but yeah, the idea is, yes, attribute, there are attributes which may have a default value, then it's not compulsory for that to be mentioned. If it's different from the default, you should mention. Okay, so annotations, programmer defined modifiers. Fine. They can have attributes. Fine. So inside annotation only method declarations, methods without parameters only, and they have just the return type.
can you declare constants?
I don't think, no. It's only for attributes, meant for attributes. Fine. Okay, so that was an overview of data types.